May 1945. Europe was finally at peace. Or at least, the war in Europe had come to an official end. The guns were silent, cities lay in ruins, millions of lives had been lost. Hitler was dead, and the Nazi regime had collapsed. In Berlin and along the banks of the Elbe River, American and Russian soldiers met after weeks of advancing from opposite directions. They hugged, they laughed, they danced, and they shared drinks of vodka and whiskey. The world was celebrating the end of the most devastating conflict humanity had ever seen. Flags waved from shattered buildings, bells rang across cathedrals, and ordinary citizens poured into the streets to cheer. Yet, amid all this jubilation, there was one man whose face betrayed no joy: General George S. Patton. Patton had always been a man of intensity, of action, of almost feral energy. While politicians in Washington and London raised glasses to their Soviet allies, Patton watched with a cold, suspicious eye. To him, these were not allies, they were future adversaries. He famously said, "We have defeated the wrong enemy." Where others saw victory and cooperation, Patton saw danger lurking just beyond the celebration. This tension came into sharp focus at a Russian-hosted victory banquet. The event was opulent, generals from both sides wearing gleaming medals, tables overflowing with delicacies, caviar, smoked fish, cheeses, endless bottles of vodka. At first glance, it seemed a moment of unity and goodwill, but the underlying reality was far more complex. These were men who had fought together out of necessity, not friendship. For 4 years, the United States and the Soviet Union had been partners against Nazi Germany, bound together only by the mutual enemy they faced. Now, as Germany lay defeated and the Third Army from the west met the Red Army from the east along the Elbe, that partnership would be tested in ways no politician could predict. Patton commanded the Third Army, one of the most powerful military forces ever assembled. He had raced across Germany, moving faster and more decisively than any commander in modern history. Berlin and Prague were within reach, but General Eisenhower had given strict orders: halt, let the Soviets take the cities. Patton was furious. "Why are we stopping?" he shouted to Eisenhower. "We are handing Europe over to the communists." His fears were not idle. He had observed Soviet behavior firsthand. Wherever the Red Army moved, it did not simply liberate, it occupied. Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, their populations came under Soviet control, often brutally. In his diary, Patton wrote, "The Russians are Mongols. They are savages. They have no respect for human life." For him, the war had not truly ended. A far greater threat, he believed, was already emerging from the east. When Patton was invited to meet the Russian commanders, he did not go to celebrate, he went to inspect. One of the most famous meetings took place near the city of Lind, where he met Marshal Fyodor Tolbukhin, a Soviet hero commanding the Third Ukrainian Front. The Russians staged an enormous parade to impress him. Thousands of soldiers marched in perfect formation, tanks rumbled past, artillery rolled in unison, and Cossacks rode majestically on horseback. Patton watched silently, his face unreadable. Privately, he told his aides, "They are the shabbiest sons of I have ever seen." He criticized their uniforms, mocked their discipline, and called them a mob, but he could not deny their toughness. He understood that these were dangerous men, capable of immense destruction. "I can beat them," he told his officers, "but I must do it now, before they grow stronger." After the parade came lunch, and with lunch came the Russian tradition of toasting, always with vodka. To toast Stalin, to toast Roosevelt, to toast the armies. Patton, a whiskey man, did not favor vodka, but he played along for a short while. The atmosphere was thick with politeness, but it was a veneer over deep mutual suspicion. The Russian generals smiled, but their eyes were cold. They knew Patton despised them, and he knew they despised him. They were two predators circling each other, waiting for the first strike. Then came the moment that would become legendary. A high-ranking Russian general, some accounts say it was Marshal Zhukov, others a corps commander, stood and raised his glass. The room fell silent. Through a translator, he offered a toast to the solidarity of the Allied nations. He looked directly at Patton, smiling, expecting him to drink. Every eye in the room turned to Patton. Eisenhower, the press, American officers, all watching. Patton stood, his expression hard as stone. He did not raise his glass. He spoke clearly so everyone could hear. "I will not drink with you, or with any Russian son of—" The room gasped. Refusing a toast in Russian culture was akin to a slap in the face. The translator froze in fear, yet Patton insisted, "Repeat it word for word." The Russians expected outrage, perhaps even a duel or a brawl. Instead, the general looked at Patton and laughed. He slammed his hand on the table, and then, astonishingly, he replied, "Tell General Patton I think he is a son of two." A small smile appeared on Patton's lips. The tension broke. They clinked glasses, a brutal honesty turning into a form of respect between two warriors. In the weeks that followed, Patton became increasingly vocal about the threat he saw in the Soviet Union. He proposed plans to rearm surrendered German soldiers, to merge them with the Third Army, and to push the Red Army back from Eastern Europe. "We are going to have to fight them sooner or later," he told his staff. "Why not now, while our army is intact and can kick their hind end back into Russia?" To his wife, he wrote, "I believe that by taking a strong stand now, we can save the world from a tyranny worse than Hitler." But the world was weary. The public wanted peace. Eisenhower was horrified by Patton's ideas. The press called him a warmonger, mentally unstable. Eventually, Patton was relieved of command. The Third Army, which he loved more than anything, was taken from him, and he was reassigned to a desk job, what he called paper shuffling. Patton watched as history unfolded exactly as he had predicted. The Iron Curtain descended across Europe. Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia all fell under Soviet control. And in December 1945, he died in a mysterious car accident. But that toast at the Russian banquet, that moment of brutal honesty, echoed for decades. Historians today still debate, was Patton right? If the Allies had listened, could the Cold War have been avoided? Could Korea, Vietnam, and countless other conflicts have been prevented? We will never know. But in that moment, Patton's essence was clear. He was a warrior, not a diplomat. He saw the world in black and white, friends and enemies, and when confronted with the enemy masquerading as a friend, he refused to lie. Even at a victory celebration, he refused to drink with the enemy.